Okay, let's talk about hypertrophy, the topic that occupies the minds of so many youth, young men, but also a lot of women. What are the ways that people can induce hypertrophy?
Now, there are hormonal factors that are important. There are nutritional factors, but just to stick with the context of training, hypertrophy has a very broad range in terms of your actual applications. And this is why you have and will continue to see countless styles of training that all work. And if you've ever thought to yourself, like, why is it all these programs work? Well, that's because what's driving changes in strength and power are the adaptations of specificity. What's driving changes in hypertrophy is much more well-rounded. And so you have options to get there. So if we look at like the classic dogma, we have to basically challenge the muscle to need to come back, in this case, specifically bigger, and the nutrients need to be there to support that growth. So all we really have to do is, going back to our dogma of activation of something on the cell wall, we've talked about this earlier, that's got to induce that signaling cascade. That's got to be strong enough to cause the nucleus to react to it, to go to the ribosomes, to initiate this entire cascade of protein synthesis. Okay, so that signal has to be one of a couple of things. Either it has to be strong enough one time, it has to be frequent enough, or it has to be a combination of these things. All right, so I can get there with a lot of frequency and a moderate signal. I can get there with very low frequency and a large signal, like more akin to what you did with Mike back in the day. So all you have to do there to not fail is to make sure the training is hard enough and it's going to work. If you choose the frequency path, then you actually have to make sure you're not training too hard to where you can't actually maintain the frequency. The only wrong combination here is infrequent and low intensity and low volume. That's it. You don't have to have breakdown at all. That is a complete, really it's a flat out lie that you have to break a muscle down to cause it to grow. That's just not needed at all. Because you have to remember two things. In order to grow new skeletal muscle, you need amino acids, which are your supply. And then you need primarily carbohydrates as the energy source to power that synthesis process. So you have to convince your nucleus that, one, invest those resources in energy, primarily carbohydrate. But number two, and more importantly, invest that supply. There's a ton of possible ways to get energy, but there's a very low amount of amino acids available. And you need them for many more things than just taking your biceps from 17 inches to 18 inches, right? It's not going to do that if you're in a position to where, again, you can't sustain immune function, if red blood cell turnover needs to be higher, or any of the other main, like tons of things that you need proteins for. So you have to be able to say, like, are you sure? You really want to spend these resources and build it into muscle? Because once we do that, it's very difficult to go backwards and bring the amino acids back into that availability pool. You can use them for either another function entirely or even another muscle group.